The Raymond G. Stanley Jr.'s got the clip for us. Let's play this clip and we'll talk a bit about it.
Do we need men? Do we need a man?
No.
Do we need men?
No.
Do women need men in this world? Do we need men?
I don't know that.
No.
Why?
Probably.
Because we can be strong, independent women.
There's this clip going viral online of a dozen women being asked the following question. Do we need men? Most answered very quickly, no. And only one said she thought women needed a man in their lives. Only one. So why do you think that is?
Because men are useless. I mean, and by the way, I want to differentiate between straight men and gay men because I think I would die without gay men.
I have Handy Manny at home. You know, he fixes everything. When things go bump in the night, he's the one that goes downstairs. When there's a bug to be exterminated, he does the extermination.
Nope.
When there is something to be fixed, he fixes it. He throws out the trash and he
Still
throws
no.
out the recyclables. I enjoy all the man stuff.
So wait a second. I know what you're going to say. But wait. She's really talking about a servant, let's face it.
No.
It's a handyman she's talking
no,
about.
it's a handy manny.
Oh, it's a handyman with benefits.
We do not have. I need my man 3 to 4 times a week. And good for you guys. Broadly speaking, I feel like men have proven largely useless. Like,
I all in favor of sending the cast of The View into a sewer to deal with rat kings and blockages, or how about to an oil refinery?
How about to a gulag? I think that'd be a good place for them.
Well, I mean, putting them in prison for having bad opinions. I'm saying
I'm all fine.
These women have lived such pampered lives, and the voting patterns of many women reflect the sacrifices men have made for them, while shielding not all women, certainly not all women, shielding many women from the harsh realities of conflict and crisis and heavy lifting and machinery and the injuries that come in the workplace, especially with like the overwhelmingly male oil refinery job with a high rate of death. And they're shielded from it, laughing, saying, we don't need men. I propose we give them what they've asked for a small period so they can figure out, do they really need men or not?
And Hannah, Claire, do women need men?
Of course they do. I mean, this is what I find really interesting about these arguments is this is like, they think they're scoring points with the other young women in the room, right? They're doing this for clout amongst themselves. But in reality, like, at least 2 of them are married. They must have thought they needed a man in some form. And I think fundamentally, this is a really divisive conversation, right? It reminds me of the way the Democrats are like, we are such a divided country because of the Republicans. It's their fault. Like, it's the same logic here. Like, women and men don't get along, but I'm just going to talk nasty about this one side, right? Like, if men were to walk around being like, men don't need women, they would either... Women would be like, you're gay, or they'd be like, how could you say that? We give life. We do all these things. Like, I think men and women are meant to be in partnership. There's a reason they're complementary. And I think this is a really arrogant way to behave. I don't like it. I think it's gross.
It's true, but let's be honest. Men have invented artificial wombs. So now the question is, do men need women?
Well,
yeah, I do.
We can grow babies in a
do.
petri dish.
This is so much deeper than where we're going here, because this train of thought is the reason our society is where it's at right now. The feminist movement has killed society. Men need to be masculine. We need toxic masculinity. We need men to be fathers. You look at all the discrepancies with the inner city and violence. It all comes down to fathers. It all comes down to men. This thinking that we do not need strong men in society is what's killing our society. So that's why I said, send them to the gulags. Send them off. First of all, no man wants to go, and no man's been down there in a while for any of those women. I mean, that's got to be nasty down there. But I'm really tired of hearing this. It's really just, as a guy who literally my entire life is centered around me providing for and protecting my family. This is just, it upsets me to the core. It makes me want to violate terms of service on YouTube. That's how much it affects
Save it for
me.
the after show.
Well,
Just to have an ounce of nuance here, I do think there is a good amount of selection bias going on here. I think this is like, you're out on the town, there, some dude's shoving a phone in your face. Do women need men? Like,
Well,
I also
and in a liberal city,
understand.
like,
Fair point. You go to-
because I also
go to
talk
a
to
more
people-
conservative city
Go to a
and like see
church.
how girls respond.
Yeah, go to a different.
They're all
Also,
gonna
with
say
the
yes.
way these women are dressed, I'm not. It just implies a setting, which
But I don't care about the women. The view is
The
what
view
matters.
is the problem. These
then
girls are whatever.
The women also don't want to be seen saying on camera now, it's like, oh, I need a man. It kind of makes them look bad in a messed up
Right.
psyche way.
That's part of the
Among
problem.
two other women, like that's the weirdest thing out of all of it is that they are looking to each other and being like, well, if I admit that I need a man, like I think they take issue with the
without-
They don't want to sound
then they
needy.
think that they sound weak, and then therefore they're all going against
Without-
feminism, which is a corrupt
So
ideology anyway.
can I pull this up real quick? This is a council member from NYC, Amanda Farias, saying, "Where are the men calling this out?" in response to the women
But they
getting
don't
punched
need
in the
them, I
face.
thought.
The Women's Caucus tweeted, "We are deeply disturbed and concerned about widespread reports of attacks against women in New York City that have been confirmed by the NYPD." So where are the men calling this out? Oh, there's one. You arrested him. And look at these scumbags. This guy right here, scumbag. This guy right here, these cops are scumbags. Sorry. And we're tomorrow morning on the Culture War, we got some cops on and we're going to debate policing. But sorry, if I was a cop and they said, you're going to be transporting Daniel Penny, I say, the hell I am.
Hey,
Find somebody
Tim,
else.
we're just following orders, though.
Nope, no dice. Don't play that game. They're going to be like, well, you got to do it or you're fired. I'll be like, by all means, you go ahead and fire me. And then I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say I got fired because I refused to take part in the arrest of an innocent man who was trying to save lives in a city plagued by corruption and crime. But these cops got no problem. They got no problem justifying in their mind why they should be the one to hold this innocent man, this good Samaritan with cuffs behind his back. Scumbags. And then they say, where are the men calling this out? You don't need men. You don't need them. You arrested them. That's how much they don't need them. These women on The View say we don't need men, and it is to the point where politically they are arresting the men who are trying to protect them.
There were no protests for him, by the way. Nobody came out. You know, also, a lot of people like to talk about, I mean, Ryan's has a nice post here, but nobody's protesting for this guy.
His fundraiser did pretty well.
People were protesting for the person who he killed, who was threatening, I believe, other people. Jordan
Neely said that he would, something to the effect of wanting to kill people, and he didn't care what would happen to him.
There were protests for him, but nobody showed up to protest.
Well,
Penny being
because
arrested,
I think you could go back to the fact that people who can't afford to take time of their day to protest, like think about the people who are supporting this guy. We generally have jobs.
Yes.
And I also don't want to get arrested. If I'm at a protest and somebody hits me, I'm going to hit them back. I'm going to be arrested.
Weren't you just at a Kyle Rittenhouse thing?
I was at a Kyle Rittenhouse protest yesterday at Western Kentucky University.
I watched your video. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're wrong about everything. They're claiming they claim he killed black people and he's racist and stuff like that. It's all lies. It's all not true.
Many of
white
them were
pedophiles.
saying specifically that he's like funded by the KKK.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Which kind of doesn't make sense. And also there's, I do think it makes sense though that
the right is the conspiracy
well,
side.
that like BLM types are anti-Rittenhouse. Although he didn't kill any black people, the white people he killed were effectively pro-BLM.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it does make
the
sense.
logic is maybe they're pretty shaky.
Yeah. So.
No, I
Do you
it's
think,
very-
is it soft of me to say like a female version of Daniel Penny would be nice? Like a girl to protect me? Why does the man always say, like if the woman was armed, I could be the bait and then the one gets, no?
to be fair, a lot of
He's a
people be a
handsome
trophy
man.
husband.
No,
so
like-
if you're a wealthy woman looking for a husband, this is a
No,
lot.
and then, I mean, and like, you know, I could bait the person people are arguing with me and then she could light him up for me.
That's real feminism. That's a
real
male ally.
Feminism. Yeah. I don't want to carry the firearm. It would be hot for
It's
the
kind of hot.
woman
yeah.
too.
It's
Yeah.
kinda
Yeah.
hot, yeah.
Do you think he has any?
It's
I
like
think-
some
I think-
Scarlett Johansson stuff.
I think that if you look at divorce rates
Absolutely
and you look at the
disavow.
opinions of women, typically situations where it's rare the situation where the man is in the stay-at-home role or the non-provider role, like it doesn't tend to work. And I think that what the data shows is that guys feel insecure if they're not providing, and women tend to feel unsatisfied if they're not receiving more.
Would she not respect me if she was carrying instead of me?
Okay, this is the thing.
Would
I
she
think the
divorce me
protection thing
and
is
she'd
so
get the
interesting because
firearm?
when I was younger and like full of life and fearless, like I thought about it less when I was dating people. And now that I'm older, like I think it was like, I don't know, somewhere in my mid-20s, I was like, no, the ability to protect me and like the steps that they actively take to defend themselves and the people they care about, like this is something I now think about a lot when dating, because it's an investment in my future, my safety, the safety of my property, and the safety of my future children, right? Like when I was younger, I would have been like, yeah, maybe it'd be cool if she carried a gun, but probably you're weak for not doing it. But now I think of it as like major ick. Would not go for sorry.
I think this
fair.
shifts into a macro problem where we as individuals, we say like an individual should have their rights. But what happens then, en masse, women, maybe because they're all being pressured to say we don't need no man or something like that, or they genuinely believe it, or maybe you have many women who are shielded from the harsh realities because men are doing the jobs like crawling around sewers. I'd like to see what The View has to say if men just did not work for a month. I mean, look, how many episodes of like that Survivor show have they done? I'm not talking about the show Survivor. They did a bunch of these shows where they got 2 islands and they put men on one and women on the other. And then what ends up happening is the women get lost, start crying, and the men within like an hour have a bar set up and are sitting there sipping on coconuts and they have a fire going. And the women there was one I watched that was so brutal. The women were like, they're trying to find supplies or whatever, and they get lost in the jungle and they walk in circles. And then once they loop back and hit one of their markers, they start breaking down and just start crying.
Have you seen all these studies that came out recently about how the 8-hour, like you need 8 hours of sleep was actually based on men, and women actually need 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night?
Yeah.
Like, we're different. We do different things for a reason, and it's great. But different.
I would ask this of guys too. Like you're a married man.
Yeah.
In my experience, I barely sleep, but my girlfriend sleeps more than I do.
Oh yeah. My wife outsleeps me. I'm like, how are you still asleep? Like, I've been up for like 3 hours. What are you doing? Women do need more sleep on average. She's absolutely correct.
And this is another thing too. For a long time, I think up until the early 90s, painkillers were only tested on men.
Mm-hmm.
And so these doctors were like, man, these women are so weak. They're complaining. We give them painkillers. And then they realized, oh, they don't work on women.
No, and I mean, it's really interesting seeing how many, like there's this really great book called The Female Brain, and it was written by a neurobiologist. And she talks about the fact that like they used to just exclude women from studies because they'd be like, they mess up the data. So crazy. But it's like, actually their hormone cycle is completely different from men. Women go on a monthly hormone cycle that men don't experience at all. Men's hormones change with age and like, under stress
daily.
and stuff. Like, it's just so interesting that feminism is like, no, we don't need men, but also we're actually completely different. Like we're very, very different. Of course you need men because they do a lot of stuff that you can't, like, especially if you think about like the reason men and women pair up is because women have to bear children and you're in a much more vulnerable state. Like, it's good that we depend on each other. And I think this idea that like feminists have created, like, I don't need no man. The word need is such a trigger for them. They can't see it as like, hey, it is helpful to be in a partnership where you have people covering different bases so we can keep the species alive. Instead, they see it as it's all about them and how they perceive themselves as weak if they admit they need help.
It's interesting though, because in the clip that we showed in the full video, they ask men, do men need women? The men say yes.
Yeah.
But a man saying they need women is different. The guy, like, if you went to a guy and said, do you need a woman to survive? You could say like, I guess emotionally life would not be fulfilling without a woman. No, like, no. In terms of resources, materials, getting a job, do you need a woman? Well, no, I could figure it out. When men are asked, do you need women? They're talking about life fulfillment and starting a family. The things they want to achieve and accomplish with their lives can't be done without a woman. I think the way the women are taking it is, do you need a man in terms of surviving? And they're like, no, I don't need a man. As opposed to, I think that it's being viewed differently. Like women internalize it as, I don't need a man to survive, which in the wilderness you would. A man would have a higher rate of survival than a woman on their own. But men are looking at it more emotionally and women are looking at it more materially.
And I think some of the girls they interview on the street, like, I bet all of them are really salty at some guy who has not texted them back. You know what I mean? Like, it is fair to say that like women will assume more masculine responsibilities if they feel like there are not men in their lives they can depend on, right? So if you have a bad experience with men, and I think you've talked about this a little bit, like when there are not strong male leaders and there aren't fathers and you're having like all these terrible romantic relationships, like of course women become bitter and are like, I don't even want to deal with you guys. On the other hand, like let's not fool ourselves. Men and women need each other, and that's good.
What's crazy is the way they're dressed looks like they're really trying to attract a man. Like that's the whole funny part of this. Like you're not wearing that for you.
They're wearing it for other women.
Oh yeah,
that's true. Like makeup, plastic surgery. So like, I'm not going to single any woman out, but there's a lot of videos and photos of women. They have lip fillers.
I'm getting nervous in the room.
I'm not talking about you. You don't have lip fillers.
I don't have lip fillers.
But there was this one woman who posted a TikTok, and she was like, how come everybody is saying that I look like I'm 45? I'm 26. And they were like, oh, because of all the plastic surgery you got, you look like someone who's desperately trying to look 26, like a 45-year-old woman or a 50-year-old woman. She's like, oh my God. No guy. Like rare guys, because there are certainly guys who like a lot of different things. Some guys like morbidly obese chicks. Some guys like skinny chicks, whatever. Certainly some guys like the crazy plastic surgery. Most guys don't like it at all.
Can you just imagine the guy who's like, yeah, I'd hit it, but man, her eyebrows aren't long enough.
And her lips aren't puffy enough.
You guys might need to ask Jeff Bezos.
Some guys like it. That's fine. But my point is, on average, when you go out and you're talking to guys are just like regular looking women are fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.